What's going on, guys? We got another edition here. This time we're doing a little bubble talk with myself, the Flagrant 2, and my guy James Hollis, aka Snottie Drippen. Hey man, we got real basketball playoffs coming up. Are you stoked or what?
It's funny because I'm excited, but we got real world stuff going on elsewhere. So the long 3.5 month delay kind of, I'm still excited. It's a good distraction.
So the first question I want to ask you,
I'm such a Debbie Downer, man. My bad.
I know we're like 30 seconds into the pod, and you're like,
yeah, the world sucks, but yeah, we got basketball. Great.
The world does suck, but you got your gummy bears, you got your basketball. We're all good. So my first question to you is: did the Suns get hosed?
No, you don't. You want to make the playoffs, play better earlier. Like if even if there was no break and they went 9-0 down the stretch and they didn't make the playoffs, they should have played better earlier. Like they had a shot to get in. We all knew the rules before they came in. Like it's not like the NBA changed the rules at the last minute. So you got to be, you got to be better than Portland. They weren't at least a game better than Portland. Like it's not hosed. It is what it is. Tip your hat to them. Tip your hat to Monty Williams. Tip your hat to Devin Booker. Hey, if you don't, you make sure that. Well, I guess they didn't lose that game. I said you make sure Ayton doesn't cheat in the offseason and is not suspended for 25 games. So, yeah. Every game counts, every minute counts, every second counts. So that's why when people are like, oh, they all talk about the last second of the game. No, because you can win a game in the first 8 minutes if you go up by 10 and then you win by 2. You know what I mean? So same thing for the season. You can't let yourself get in such a hole that you need to go 8-0 and you still miss the playoffs. That's on the Suns. That's not on anybody else. So I give them credit, but yeah, they definitely did get hosed.
Well, don't you think it kind of defeats the purpose of getting invited? Because you would think that the purpose of getting invited is with the thought that you can get in. And granted, if LeVert hits it, they do get in, but it almost defeats the purpose of getting invited because it's like everything they could control within the bubble, they did, and they still missed it. I just feel like it's kind of a bad look for the league.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because, again, play better before. Don't be one of the worst teams in the league and go 8-0 and miss the playoffs. That's not the league's fault. You know what I mean? So, no, I'm not going to – again, these are basketball players. They had an 82-game season lined up. They already cut the season short. So to say that, oh, well, they should have just stayed home, they play basketball. They put their franchise on the map a little bit. People were talking about the Suns for next season. It kind of raised their Q rating, right? People are now looking at Devin Booker in a different light because of these 8 games. So you can't just say it's for nothing. You know what I mean? That's why I see it. Like I think a little people have a little more focus because when you're in that bubble, right? All eyes are on you. They played very well. So now their expectations going into next season for the Suns, where there weren't any before, right? They were just another team. Nobody cared about the Suns before the shutdown. So, and then for the NBA, guess what? It drove conversation. It made people talk about the Suns. It got people were watching the last 2 games of the season that usually don't matter because it mattered. You know what I mean? So no, I don't think it's for nothing, and I don't think they got hosed. It sucks for them because yeah, you handle your business, you go 8-0, and you still don't get in. But they considered themselves a lottery team anyway before they'll shut down. So it's like even to have a shot to go for that play-in, that's pretty cool.
Does this change your opinion on the Suns and their core and kind of their ability to be a contender going forward?
Yes. At least we see the fact that there is the framework for a functioning team there.
Good coach.
Again, yeah, from the coach and to the players, because when you do the bubble, right, you're still down to 22 teams. The 8 worst teams are gone, so they're not they weren't just playing against a bunch of scrubs, and they played well. They showed versatility. They showed they weren't scared, and we talk about the playoffs. This was their playoffs. They played under pressure and they played well. No teams came in and just like gave up for them, right? Nobody rolled over for them. So yeah, it gives me a little bit of hope. But guess what? The Suns have been bad now for 5-6 years, 7. So like it's good, but we've seen this before from other teams where they end the season really strong and they come in the next season thinking, all right, we're here now. It doesn't work like that, right? So they got to be ready next season to put in the work and come again. But yes, it definitely kind of validates a lot of the missteps the Suns have made the last couple of years.
So obviously Suns didn't make it. Rest in peace, Phoenix Suns. The two teams that did make the playing game are Blazers and Memphis. And dude, I found myself like the end of that Blazers game. I had no stakes. I didn't bet on the game or anything, but like my heart was pounding because I just wanted the Blazers to make it so bad. What were your feelings when you were watching that game?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's exciting, right? That's what the NBA is about, man. It came down to a last shot. Two flawed, but like gritty teams that weren't going to give up. 134 to 133 or something like that. That's no defense was really being played, but like great shot making between Dame and Karis LeVert. CJ had a gritty performance. Like it was a great game, and that's what I'm saying, man. Like we're in the bubble, and it's the playoffs around the corner. We're still cheering for teams. That's exciting. That's good. I was actually pulling for the Suns to get in. I was.
But don't you think the Blazers probably of all the bubble teams or of all the A seed like participants had the best shot of actually doing some damage in the playoffs?
They do. Honestly, with now Nurk is back and them playing so well, like this is a totally different team with Nurk back. But now CJ has his back issues. That's going to kind of concern me. If he's not 100%, then they're probably still in trouble. But yeah, they definitely do. But again, my thing is Dame missed those two free throws, right? And like if he hits those two free throws, we're not even talking about this, right? You still want them to win, and the Suns still have it, but they're definitely a game up on the Suns, and it's not even like a real issue. So I like to see it come down to the margins, and like you said, the Suns played, they did everything they could, 100%. Dame already kind of dropped the ball, so I was like, well, guess what? The Suns have done what they're supposed to do. But I like Dame. I love Dame actually. I think, and I got yelled at this on Twitter, going into next season, until Steph comes back and takes the crown, Dame to me is the best point guard in the league.
So I wrote this down, and it's hard to quantify this, but like obviously it's nothing new to say that Dame is an elite player. He's a top 10 player in the game. He's now has so many signature moments. Like he's got the two series-ending shots. He gets the Rockets hit against the Thunder. He's got multiple 50, 60-point games. Does Dame climb into like an all-time Iverson type conversation? Like is he at that level? And if he's not, like what does he have to do to get to that point?
I think if you have to ask that question, then he's not yet. Because the fact that like I think there's certain players like you just know, right? Iverson, you just know he's like sure he's not Braun, he's not MJ, but when his name is just you say AI, everyone knows what you're talking about. Dame is getting there, and of course he has many years left, and I think his legacy is pretty solid. Someone asked me the question like how can he surpass Chris Paul? Neither one of them have a championship. Neither one has like great playoff success. But it's a good question because it's funny. Dame is such a great player, but he's always been overshadowed by Steph. But he doesn't have the benefit of Steph Curry's teammates, right? He doesn't have an all-world number 2 shooting guard. He doesn't have an all-defensive big man who can play center and power forward and pass the ball, point forward. So like it's different. And I'm not saying I can't put him on the same par as Steph. Steph has 3 rings all time, But if you're just talking about game to game in moment, Dame can do a lot of things that Steph can do, So it's you know what? A couple more years of this, he's always been kind of underappreciated. You know what I mean? I remember it was a couple years before he made an All-Star team, and wow, it's crazy. He's not making All NBA. He's not making All-Star team, and like it's true. He's always been kind of just like it's weird. And I know it's where he plays. He has the same kind of attitude people like. He raps, he does his freestyle, but he's always been kind of like I don't know, man. I just know if he keeps playing at this level, and let's say Portland's a lot better next year, everybody stays relatively healthy, and they got to make a couple deep playoff runs. He needs to win the championship, and yeah, he definitely should be talked about in those ways.
Yeah, I think the only thing that separates him from like an Iverson, other than the scoring titles, which I don't know, nowadays scoring titles is always going to be tough because like Dame could shoot 35 times a game if he wanted to, but he does. You watch these games closely like I do. Yes, he does chuck up these 30-footers, but he is a willing passer. Like he is willing to throw the ball out, and like that game-winning play, it was an assist. And You know, the only thing other than scoring titles that separates like Iverson from him is probably that one finals run. Dame had a conference finals run. They got washed by the Warriors, but I agree with you. They need to at least make another conference finals. Maybe make the finals. Like this would be the year that they could maybe if they get past the Lakers, then they would probably feel like what's stopping us now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean that's a really big if. You know what I mean? Like they're probably not gonna beat the Lakers. Let's be real. That's what's crazy about Dame. He gets kind of like crushed for things like losing to the all-time great Warriors. Steph always kills him. I mean, Steph had Clay and Dre, and they're like an all-time great team. And then he had KD. Like what are we doing right now? You know? And so Dame is almost kind of like a Karl Malone-ish kind of legacy without the nasty off-court stuff, because he's great in his own right, but he's coming up in the shadow of even greater players. LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, those guys existed. And so Dame is a half step behind them all or a step behind them all. And it's going to like, you know, we kind of overlook him because of that.
Would you rather have him or Westbrook?
Right now? Oh, that's easy, Dame. I love Russ to death. But right now, I say probably for the last maybe 2 seasons, that's been my answer.
Because there are people on the internet who get real sensitive when that comes up, but I really don't think it's a contest. I mean, yeah, Russ has triple doubles, but
yeah, it's not a contest. I mean, there was a time when Westbrook had his peak MVP Russ. It was definitely, you know, I think I would pick Russ back then, but even looking back, to say that Dame is Steph light sounds like we're like, you know, downgrading Dame, but no, Steph is incredible. Steph is like an offensive to himself, right? You put shooters around Steph and like he's been the backbone of a championship team, you know, at least 2 years, or you know, for whatever. So Dame is, if you could say you build that team different around Dame, it's much easier to build around Dame than it is around a guy like Russ.
So Blazers are playing in the play-in game against the Grizzlies. I fully expect Portland to win. I think you probably do too. But do you think there's a chance that they could maybe, I don't know, slip? Like the reason I ask that is when you watch the end of that Nets game, with the Nets roster, with the talent that they no longer had, with the roster that they shouldn't have been in that game, and they were one Karis LeVert jumper away from their season being over. So my question is, do you think is there a roadmap for the Grizzlies to actually win this game?
I mean, there is, but without Jaren Jackson Jr., it's very slim to none. As we saw there, their margin for error is so slim that it's almost non-existent. If Jaren Jackson Jr. was playing, I would definitely give them in fact, they probably wouldn't be in the position, right? They probably wouldn't have lost some of these games they lost without Jaren Jackson Jr. So, but yes, Portland's problem is they don't play defense. They struggle with defense because their 2 small guards up top are not. I guess I don't think Dame's a liability. I think he's maybe a net neutral, net zero. CJ is definitely a liability defensively. They don't have a bigger wing to really defend, other wing players. So yeah, their problem is defense. And if Ja Morant can get loose a little bit, let's say Dylan Brooks gets hot, there's definitely a chance, So yeah, there's a chance. I mean, they're both right there seated for a reason, even with Nurk back.
So before we dive into the playoff matchups, I do want to say a sincere rest in peace to the 2020 San Antonio Spurs. 22 straight playoff years. Last time was 97. 5 rings, 6 60-win seasons. They had a fantastic run. Much respect to them. Absolutely no fucking shade towards the Spurs. So I just want to congratulate them on a fantastic run. And anybody on Twitter that thinks that we don't support the Spurs is nuts. So I wanted to say
no,
that.
He's not. My boy Jesse said something to us. He's not nuts because I've been rooting for the Spurs downfall for years. For the simple fact, not for the team itself. They're fine, but their fans were some of the most kind of elitist. Our team doesn't do that kind of stuff. That's not the Spurs way. And other teams, that's fine. Yes, there was definitely a smugness attached, and for good reason. Your team's that good for so long. I get it. They get a little used to success, but I've been like, you know what? I can't wait to watch the wheels fall off. Now, the difference is, though, I like Lonnie Walker. I like DeJounte Murray. They have some good, young, likable pieces. I think the Spurs have sputtered front office wise the last few years. Most notably, the thing like what they traded because they thought they had Marcus Morris coming and he went to the Knicks instead. Like those kind of things, they happen, but they shouldn't happen to a franchise like the Spurs. And also the fact that they refuse to shoot threes and like they just been a weird kind of in a funk since since the Kawhi thing. And so I went from rooting against them to almost like feeling bad for them, which this is not shade. I'm not joking. It's like, because they've been kind of spinning their wheels for the last couple of years. And, LaMarcus is a nice player. I like DeMar DeRozan. He's fun to watch. But they just, you know what I mean? They've been scraping along and barely. And so it's been kind of sad to watch a once proud, great franchise with all these all-stars and Hall of Famers. Now they're trying to cobble together respectability from just like bits and pieces that kind of don't fit, whatever. So I'm interested to see what their next step's going to be next season. And, yeah, tip your hat, man. Like, you can't really make fun of them. They made the playoffs for 22 straight years. They're one of the – like, no other franchise in North American, like, major franchise history as far as the main sports can say something like that. So great feat, great era. Spurs fans embrace it. Be excited for the future because they have some young pieces that actually can be difference makers. They just need to hit that home run or draft that home run, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that came from Jesse Blanchard. So we do support the Spurs here. So we wanted to.
No, let's not lie. We don't support them.
Well, we
just don't
appreciate.
We don't slander them. I'm not slandering them. I don't support them though.
We appreciate the run they had. So before we get into the playoffs, I just something that I don't want to say pissed me off, but there are people who are in my mentions
real quick.
sometimes.
Let me ask you real quick.
Yeah.
1997 was the last time they missed the playoffs.
Yep.
Like, think about what were you doing in 1997? Like, think about that. You know what I mean?
I was getting ready for summer camp, bro, and like basketball trading cards with my Tim Duncan rookie card, trying to feel cool. Like that was it, man. And nothing else.
You know what I'm saying? Like there are people alive who tweet us and talk to us that weren't alive when that happened. You know what I'm saying? It could be somebody who's like 21 years old. They had a little 21-year-old punk. But at the same time, like they're functioning adults who weren't around when that stuff was like, that's crazy.
Honestly, our entire adult lives, they've been a model franchise. And you're right, man. I mean, I used to collect basketball cards, and the Duncan card was a sick card, and they just ushered in a whole new era. Robinson left. They just got Duncan. They had one lotto appearance in 20 years. They happened to get number one pick. And that was it. It's insanity. This should be short, but I just wanted to ask you, there are people who think Zion's going to win Rookie of the Year, but I just want to be clear that no shot in hell should he be Rookie of the Year, and it should be Ja Morant. I just want to see if you feel similarly.
Yeah, he didn't play enough games. That's it. And then I know the bubble games don't count, but we saw he looked bad. He had his moments, but I think all of the negatives that we worry about him were on display. He couldn't stay on the court because he's getting exhausted. He was a nightmare on defense. He was just all over the place. Some games he just didn't have it, And then that's weird. You play him for 15 minutes a night, 10 minutes. That's just weird. That was just. I don't know if we'll ever know. Some people are positing that there was more going on in New Orleans than we know.
Has to be.
Right. I even heard some. I'm not gonna repeat the stuff I heard on here because it's almost to the point of like it's libelous. Like dude, that can't be true. You know what I mean? So and it's about Zion. He seems like a really good kid. I wouldn't want to put any information out there that is just that if it's proved false, people are like, wow, I can't believe you said that. You know what I mean? And nothing criminal, nothing crazy like that, but just like, he seemed like a good kid, seemed like a decent work ethic, so I'm not gonna put it out there. And yeah, it was just there's reports that your boy Ball, Zoe Ball was like he was really checked out, like he mentally checked out for the whole thing. And they played with no pop. They played with no kind of energy or spirit. And so that was kind of disappointing to see.
There was a stat about Lonzo, and my guy Tommy Beer tweeted it. I don't know if you follow him, but he's a good follow on Twitter. This was it. It says he wrote in his final 4 games before the bubble, Lonzo was averaging 21-5, shooting 58% from deep. In Lonzo's 6 games in the bubble, he averaged 5.7 points, 0.8 3-point attempts, 3-pointers a game average, and he shot 26% from the field, 19% from three. So the numbers back up that I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah. And that's just such a weird thing because we know people say what they want. The NBA would have loved to have the Pelicans in the playoffs and have Braun versus Zion in the first round, and everything seemed to be set up for that. We got none of that, not even close. And so, yeah, they're out of the bubble. They're gonna have to reset and regroup this offseason. They got some decisions to make, and yeah, the Pelicans were one of my biggest disappointments of the bubble with the Pelicans.
I mean, the NBA, as far as I'm concerned, they straight up they tried to rig it so that Memphis would get fucked, New Orleans would make it. They'd get their 10 more Zion games, and they'd be happy. And they were definitely like praying that it wouldn't be like Memphis Suns or something. And they might get it with Blazers. No guarantees. We've seen Steph and Clay get hurt, and then the Raptors win the championship, I should say. So speaking of the championship, let's get to the main thing, because we have the matchups. So I just want to get your thoughts on some of these matchups in the East and West. Are there any matchups in particular that you're like, I mean, obviously Boston probably, but any matchups in particular that you can't wait to watch?
Let's go over the matchups.
All right.
Obviously Celtics Philly, right? Because it takes a little bit of shine off it. No Ben Simmons. He has the injured kneecap, and he's out of the bubble, and that's
Sucks.
Man, Philly's been a disappointment all season, and for it to end like this, or let's say they somehow get together and beat the Celtics, that's their championship. But that sucks. It sucks for them, and they're a rival, so you can't cheer on a player getting injured. And then you looking going forward, they got so much money tied up in Al Horford and Tobias Harris and Simmons and Embiid that there's almost like there's have very little wiggle room as far as improving that roster. So I'm intrigued to see what Embiid does as the focal point. And I don't think they have enough shooting around him, but that's gonna be fun to watch. And the Pacers and the Heat, and that's our 4-5, right?
Yep, Indiana beat them today. Same matchup. They beat them by double digits today, which is interesting.
Yeah, we know that. We're not going to put any stock in that. Me and you were talking about that before. No teams really, whatever. But because they're very similar teams. They're built around a ball dominant kind of guard, Jimmy Butler versus Victor Oladipo, who are two different guards, obviously. One has Bam Adebayo, the other one has a Miles Turner. They're different kind of players, but they're kind of stretchy, young, bouncy bigs. A lot of scrappy guys around them. The Indiana guys seem to be built more on defense. Guys, the Holiday brothers and the young scrappy guards, and then the Heat have a bunch of shooters. It's very, very almost like a bizarro mirror image of each other, and it'll be interesting to see how they match up.
Yeah. Other than that, I do personally think that the rest of the East matchups, the 1, 8, and 2, 7, I don't think they're even worth talking about. Milwaukee, Orlando, and Toronto, Brooklyn. But the West is far more difficult to predict. Lakers versus either Portland or Memphis. Clippers, Dallas 2-7. Denver, Utah 3-6, and OKC, Houston. Honestly, other than I don't think any of those are like guarantee like one team's going to win over the other.
I'm pretty confident in the Clippers over the Dallas Mavericks because the Mavericks the defense. Their defense is pretty poor. And it's been talked about enough. The Mavericks are terrible in the clutch. They were one of the worst clutch teams in the league this year. And so playoff game is going to come down to crunch time moments. One team has Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Lou Williams. Another one has Luka Doncic. So I'm pretty confident in the Clippers in that one. But all the rest of those series, and let's be real. The Lakers, I think the Lakers are a slam dunk over whoever they play. There's a reason that Portland's a different team with Nurkic. I completely understand.
And Collins. And Gary Trent.
And Collins. Yeah, they're great. They're definitely upgraded than they were. But one team has LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I don't think Portland has anyone to guard Anthony Davis. I don't think they have. We know they have no one to guard LeBron James. I guess you only hope that Dame and CJ can just go nuts because I think that the perimeter players in the Lakers aren't very good defensively. Contavious Caldwell-Pope pretty, the activity's there at least, but he's not like a lock.
Dame's gonna have to go 50-10 every game for them to win.
Yeah.
For them to win.
And that's the thing. Like the Lakers can keep their big man on the court because Nurk is on the court. So it's not like they even if they downsize with Zach Collins. His name Zach Collins. Yeah, even if they downsize with Zach Collins, like he's still a big man. He's like a stretch big man. So they can keep one of their big men on the court if they want to, or they can play Anthony Davis at center in the rec shop. So I'm pretty confident in the Lakers. I think we talk about the Lakers struggle in the bubble. I'm pretty sure a lot of that is LeBron James cruising, because playoff time comes, it's a different story. He's been very unremarkable in the bubble except for the passing. The team has been unremarkable, but you can see it. Anthony Davis came out a couple games, just didn't shoot. He didn't really care. You can see that.
They're just working on their conditioning. That's all they're doing.
Absolutely. So I think a lot of hand wringing was done about the Lakers and their bubble performance. I just think they're a veteran team that actually realizes we have nothing to play for. We're the number 1 seed. We're cruising. We're going to hit the playoffs and crank it up.
Yeah, I mean, the other two, 3, 6, and 4, 5, Denver, Utah, OKC, Houston. Do you think I don't think Denver, Utah, either of those would be I don't think either of these would be an upset if any of those 4 teams won, right? I mean, where's your head at with those matchups and what you think is going to happen?
I think if Denver loses, because for Utah, they haven't been playing like exceptionally great. Bogdanovich is injured, right? And he was a leading scorer, or second leader scorer, and he was great for them this year. Their big free agents signing. Mike Conley has been underwhelming. If they pull it off, and the Nuggets were considered to be like they were in the number 2 seed for most of the season, right? They were up there. Yep. So I think and the Nuggets every year have kind of progressed in the playoffs a little more, whatever. They're always that team that's on the cusp. I think the Nuggets have to win that series. If they lose that series, I get it. You still look at Gary Harris being in and out. No, he's not in the lineup yet. Will Barton's hurt. They haven't really had a complete lineup but we had 3.5 months off. I get guys got injured, but it's playoff time. So if they don't pull it off, I kind of look at the Nuggets as having a disappointing season, and I look at the Jazz as kind of overachieving.
Yeah, I mean, they have added some good depth. Like, kudos to them. I mean, like, they've developed some guys. Like, Monty Morris is somebody who can give them buckets. Like, Porter Jr. has been great. Bol has been, like, the internet's favorite son. We do have a Twitter question that actually involves a Nugget, so I want to read it. Again, from Jesse, your boy. He said, who will be better in 3 years, Michael Porter Jr. or post-injury KD?
Ooh.
Let's go one.
I'm going to have to go with the guy who's already a Hall of Famer. Oh, we're saying post-injury. Let's say Kevin Durant comes back at 80% of what he was. What does that look like? Because that's what makes superstars better. Like superstars is the fact that you can have a guy who would say, oh, like Paul George is 85% of Kawhi Leonard. That extra 15% is what makes Kawhi Leonard a franchise centerpiece and Paul George better as Batman. You know what I mean? That extra little something that superstars have is what differentiates them from all-stars. So if KD comes back at 80% of his own self, not quite as fast, but he can still shoot from everywhere. Is he like a souped-up Dirk Nowitzki? A souped-up late-career Dirk Nowitzki, which is still great. But Michael Porter Jr. has all the makings of maybe KD Light in a couple years, right? Maybe he's doing 25, 5-5 for the Nuggets and learns how to play some defense. That's a good question, but just for the sake of, I'm going to go give KD his flowers for being an all-timer. And like they say, I saw some video of him rehabbing and shooting in the gym. It looks good. I'm going to say KD is still, going to be a top 10 player. I don't know if we'll ever say that about Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, I mean, look, KD is going to be 32 in about 2 weeks. So in 3 years, he'll be 35, which is that's a tough age to be still a great player. But, like, what do we really see Michael Porter Jr., to your point, what do we really see Michael Porter Jr. being? He's not going to be a top 10 player in the NBA. I mean, if he is, God bless him. But, like, what do we really expect him to be? Like, what's his ceiling is the question that I wonder.
And I don't know. I still have questions about his health. Have you seen his family's health profile?
I know that he had like back injuries and nobody wanted to
No,
touch him.
not just him, dude.
Oh,
Go
his
look
brother.
not just his brother, his mom, his whole family. It's the weirdest thing. Just a series of like pretty significant injuries for his whole family. His sisters, his mom. I think go take a look at it. It's weird. So yeah, I want to see. He has to stay healthy, obviously. Let's say you give him relative health. I'm still a 35-year-old KD, man. Again, let's say 30. KD's 7 foot, dude, and let's say he starts slowing down, and they say, all right, now you're at power forward. You're a power forward now. You can stand out here and shoot. You can still drive past most power forwards. You can post up smaller guys. You're a power forward. I think that KD is still better than Michael Porter Jr. I'll say that.
Yeah, I agree with that. So the last one is OKC, Houston 4-5. I personally like OKC.
I'm excited about that one.
Yeah.
They say Russ might miss the first couple games. Knowing Westbrook, he's not going to. But if he does, let's say they lose game 1, I think he's playing game 2. So it definitely is the lab created Rockets, right? They just threes and everything is through Harden and Westbrook, threes and dunks and layups. No center. It's like a mad scientist experiment versus kind of like a traditional, almost folksy, cliched basketball team, right? A little crabby point guard, the big lumbering center. They got a young, brash kind of wing and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They got the Euro power forward / small forward in Gallinari. And then they got the super scorer off the bench in Schroeder. So like a prototypical NBA team versus this futuristic push the limits NBA team. So then you got the other side stories. Westbrook versus Chris Paul. That's been one of the things. Oh, who's better all these years?
Westbrook versus Thunder.
They got traded for each other. Westbrook versus Thunder. James Harden went to Thunder. It was hey, Steven Adams got traded for James Harden.
This is one of those series where we really miss the fans because that would have been a shit show if he had to go. He would have to go back to OKC, and that might affect because like I do with Westbrook, he's an adrenaline player, adrenaline shooter. It might throw him off his game, or it might ignite him to be the best version.
Here's the thing. It's funny. The Thunder fans still love Westbrook, so they wouldn't cheer for him, but it would not have been the hostile environment I think that you believe it would have been. I've watched the discourse on Twitter where Thunder fans are arguing with each other because some people are like, no, you can't pull for Westbrook because pull Westbrook means he's going to play good against us, and they're like, well, yeah, he's still Russ, we love him.
But he'd probably be emotional. You know what I mean? Like he'd be emotional probably going to OKC.
Yes, and when he's emotional, it's not a good thing. He plays like a little wild and out of control. So at least one game. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're right. Going into OKC in that environment, place that he's beloved would have been weird for him. So it's actually a negative for OKC. But yes, I would not be shocked if OKC pulled that one off. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if the Rockets kind of blew their doors off.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating series. I don't know, man. I feel like OKC has an awesome team. Not an awesome team, but like Gallinari solid. Like you said, Shea Gilgeous has become really good. Schroeder has been solid. Chris Paul is the anchor they needed. Weirdly, they tried all these combinations with Harden, with Westbrook. Durant left, obviously, but this is like the most like cohesive basketball team they've had. Like of all of those teams, they needed a Chris Paul.
Okay. I don't know if I'd say the most cohesive, right? Maybe what you mean since KD left?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with that. Okay, and you know what? It makes sense, right? When you got stars of the level of Chris Paul, of Russ Westbrook and Kevin Durant, they're going to do a lot of stuff, and they're going to be superstars. Chris Paul is just not that kind of superstar, but he also still is a borderline superstar because he's such a smart player. And this hurts me to say because I hate Chris Paul. But, yeah, you got to give him his credit, man. He's been better than I thought. They've been better than I thought. They really gel. They really they show like they're kind of deep. They play together, which is funny because that's what the Rockets kind of don't do. I think the Rockets are Russ, Harden. Hey, you guys make shots. And that's all they really are. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel like they're really connected. That's what it's gonna be a very interesting, two different contrasting styles and like whole just contrasting personalities of team.
It's going to be fascinating to see like what I know the Rockets their game plan is like we're just going to run you off the court, we're going to shoot a million threes, but like who's guarding Steven Adams? And like I don't know, there are some matchup problems for the Rockets, and I understand you could so yeah, I do think that it's going to be there are some matchup problems. I don't know who's going to start guard Steven Adams, but we shall see. So who do you have coming out of the West? You still have the Lakers or Clippers, one of those two?
I got the Clippers. I still think they're just too deep. I think as much as LeBron James is awesome, I mean, when you got a team that can has a multi-headed attack like the Clippers do, while we know it's basically Brown and Bron and then whoever can chip in with the Lakers, I think it's going to be just, LeBron and Kawhi are almost neck and neck. I think LeBron is still like the smarter, the wily lion, old lion. I think Kawhi's right there, maybe a 16th of a step behind him. And then they have so much more talent on the roster. So I still think it's going to be the Clippers.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I'm going Clippers as well. Although, did you see last night? I don't know what to make of it, man. There are two things that I noticed about the Clippers. One was Kawhi at halftime was like, he was walking as if he had like busted his knee up for real. And then second half, he looked fine. But there was another play where he had a guard on him in the post. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was a smaller guard, and he didn't get the ball.
I saw it. He didn't get the ball. And he kind of like
he was like
kind of slumped. He slumped his shoulders, and he went to the corner and got the three anyway. So, dude, none of this. Again, for teams like Lakers and Clippers, none of this matters, right? These are warm-up games. They're just trying to get reps. And sure, he was like, toss that lob. They didn't toss. I think it was Zubac didn't toss the lob into him. And he kind of just like, you can see it. That's one of the few times you've seen frustration on Kawhi Leonard's face and like his body language. He's like a robot. But I think once the playoffs start, they get Montreal Harrell back on the court, and the games really matter and the juice is on. We've seen him be an amazing playoff performer, So I'm not – them and the Lakers, I think, if 3 games into the first round, they're not up at least 2-1, I'd be shocked. Both of those teams.
So with the East, I'm trying to remove your bias hat for a sec, and I just want to see if you're feeling confident that let's say Boston can get past Philly, who has had some injuries. Do you see them having the chance to make a deep run?
I do. And you know what? I give the Raptors the nod because their continuity and their culture, it sounds cliche, but the Raptors really are together and they believe and they've become greater than the sum of their parts. Like, look at their regular season. Now, the other end of that spectrum, being great regular season is different than being great in the playoffs. And we know that in the playoffs, Kawhi Leonard took a lot of their load. Right, in the playoffs, he did a lot of things. Like, he won them several games basically like on his back, just going nuts. Not saying the guys didn't help, but he was like the guy, and that's what comes down to the playoffs: is having somebody who can be the guy and just kind of take over games. Now we slid Pascal up to the guy, and maybe Kyle Lowry up to being the guy, 1B. Can they take that load against a really good set defense? For the Celtics, I think they have 2 guys, maybe 3, large wings who can score and facilitate and like defend. Gordon Hayward, Brown, and Jason Tatum. That I don't know. We'll see. It's about which guys can take control of the moment. And I'm gonna give Kyle Lowry his props. He has been a big shot taker, big shot maker in big moments. This is Kemba's first meaningful playoff run, so I don't know what to make about that. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have done it. They got to the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James. So they've been battle tested. So it's then the Raptors have been to the finals with Kawhi Leonard. So we'll see, man. I think Celtics have a chance. I give it Giannis because Giannis and the Bucks I think they're head and shoulders above everybody in the East. I think the Celtics is maybe again another quarter step below the Raptors only because of that continuity and the confidence that Kyle Lowry gives the Raptors.
Yeah, I think those are all fair points. I'll give a shout out to you mentioned the Raptors. We had somebody tweet at us. Bradley Milton said, "Give a shout out to OG Anunoby." So
he said, "Give him." He said, "Give." Yeah, 15 minutes, dude. You're crazy. Here's the thing about OG Anunoby. Again, the defense is incredible. One of those glue guys, right? He just doesn't demand the ball, doesn't make a peep, but like he outplayed LeBron James in the game that they played against when they blew out the Lakers. The numbers out, statistically he outplayed LeBron James. Now against the Celtics, he got, he didn't do anything. But yeah, man, he's any team will be lucky to have him. He's getting he's not going to create really for himself, but he makes shots, he defends, he plays power forward. He's definitely, him and Siakam are a nice little 1-2 punch on the wings.
Dude, they're deep. Like people want to kind of strip the Raptors of legitimacy when they won their title because Steph and Clay got hurt. Clay and Durant, but they were deep and they're still deep. Like they, of course you lost the best player, one of the best players in the league, but I agree, man. Like there's no reason they can't make another run. They have that confidence now, and there's no reason to believe they can't come out of the East.
The only reason I say is Giannis. Giannis is like the Deuce X. He's like LeBron was. There's just no one to guard him. And, Kawhi did a really good job last year, and teams built a wall, but he still went off. And, like, if you don't have somebody who can match up with and at least go toe-to-toe with Giannis production-wise, which no team really does, what do? Right? If he's coming down and getting everybody in foul trouble and he's scoring 45, at the rim, what do you really do? So that's the question. How does Toronto and Boston match up with a guy like Giannis? Especially when they have a guy like Middleton who's going to chip in and give you 25. Or, Connaughton or DiVincenzo can, they're hitting open threes because Giannis is collapsing the defense. So that's what makes Milwaukee so dangerous, and that's why I give Milwaukee the edge over both Boston and Toronto right now.
I'm with you, man. So, kind of a lighter show. We wanted to, we'll do more of the Go Talk. Believe me, we still got the Celtics, still got the Knicks, still got some good teams, but we wanted to focus on the playoffs. But something that came along just now, as we were starting to record, is that Vlade Divac stepped down. Do you have any thoughts on Vlade Divac and his reign of terror as a Kings executive?
Just another sad chapter in Sacramento history. The Kings' history, because since the era of Chris Webber and Vlade, that team has just been kind of a train wreck. And it's sad because they have such a great fan base and they had such a decent, not a storied history, but, Mitch Richmond was there. They had, then they had the era of Chris Webber and Vlade Divac and Peja. Like they were legitimately contenders. They pushed the Lakers to, and to see them fall into such just despair and ill repute. And this, Vlade made this questionable decision, and the owner came in and tried to run it I don't know what was happening. It's just sad because their fan base, some of my favorite followers on Twitter and best people interact with are Sacramento Kings fans. And they're just, to say long suffering is to undersell how bad the Kings have been. Vlade, as much as I liked him as a player, he's been terrible as an executive. Questionable decisions, questionable signings, giving money to guys who are past their prime and has been. Harry Giles is going to be an unrestricted free agent. This guy has Harrison Barnes getting all that money again for what? Trevor Ariza got a big contract. It's just what are you doing? And again, we have no idea who's going to take his place. No idea who's going to fill these spots. They're just stuck in this quagmire. The last 2 years, Fox has been so exciting. Then you miss on Luka and you get, I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
I agree. Some bad moves, very questionable, that has kept them in mediocrity. Obviously, we spent an entire segment on one podcast just talking about teams that didn't draft Luka, and unfortunately, taking Bagley over him, like no matter how good Bagley is, he's never going to be as good as Luka. I will say one thing: the DeMarcus Cousins trade was a good trade. He got Buddy Hield, and he got a first and a second round pick. Buddy Hield pretty good. And
what did those picks turn into?
Have
they transferred? Have they conveyed yet? I don't know.
Keep talking. I'm gonna look it up.
I don't know if I'd say it was a good trade. It was a necessary trade. I feel like they could have probably at the time got more for DeMarcus Cousins, but who knows?
Well,
yes,
never being healthy after that. So at least
Yeah, he got hurt halfway through the next season, and that's one of those butterfly effects. If he had went somewhere else, would he have gotten hurt that same way? So we don't know. And I don't know. The point is, like, they wasted his time in Sacramento.
sure did.
They never put it. They never built anything around him. They didn't get enough shooting, whatever. They are even Buddy Hield now is a bench player, and he seems unhappy, and it's just a weird situation altogether. Just strange, and this. Hopefully, the new front office is given the keys, and they bring in somebody smart to actually make that team make some sense.
So the second round pick turned into Frank Mason the third. So that's whatever. And it says the 2017 first ended up being Zach Collins, but that must have been he must have been involved in a trade, which it looks like drafted by the Kings and then traded. Here you go. Traded for Harry Giles and Justin Jackson on draft day. So
yeah, and Justin Jackson is now in. Isn't Justin Jackson? Is he still there? Or is he now in? I don't know. I thought he was in Dallas.
Justin Jackson is, I think
he's in Dallas, and Harry Giles is about to walk. They didn't even give him they didn't tender him a qualifying offer or anything. They just let him be a free agent because whatever. So you know something, it's just squandering assets, squandering young talent. You know, ever since the days of Isaiah Thomas blossoming and they just shipped him out, like whatever, man. It's just the Kings have been a perennial doormat right there with the Knicks. The Suns are trying to get out of that mode, and they're doing a good job. And this is why I say the bubble matters. Because the Suns were talked about in the same breath as the Kings, and now they have a little, even if it's only 8 games of respect, it's respect. And they have a optimistic future. While the Kings, their GM is stepping down, and like they're you know, they play like crap in the bubble. So it is what it is, man. That's why, yeah. I'll say this: I bet Kings fans are saying, guess what? If the bubble made the body step down, it was worth it.
I almost actually feel like Buddy Hield bullied Vlade into giving him a contract. He was basically like, dude, like, I'm about to blow up. I'm starting to kill it. You better give me a contract or I'm gonna work my way out of town. And Vlade was like, I'm gonna get you paid. He gave him 4 years, 94, which is whatever. Like we talk all the time about bloated contracts. That's not even that bad for a dude who's 26 and is a borderline all-star. But
he's come off your bench. That is bad. You're paying him that to come off the bench, and then you got a guy who's probably a better player in Bogdanovich that's going to be a free agent. You know what I'm saying? It's poor asset allocation, poor asset management, just poor everything. So
yeah, well, sorry to Kings fans that we basically turned this into a
no, congratulations to Kings fans, because now they can move on. I know they're tired of him. Same thing with Jim Boylan in Chicago. I don't know if you heard today. They relieved him of his duties too. Chicago, until the front office is gone, they're going to keep making the same kind of crap mistakes. But at least Jim Boylan's gone. They can bring in a decent coach, hopefully. So.
Yeah. So, like I said, we wanted this episode to be a little light. We want to focus on the playoffs. We will do some GOAT stuff when when it's time. But any final thoughts or things you want to catch up on before we call it?
I mean, I think Philly might have to make a decision between Embiid and Simmons here soon, or find a sucker to take Tobias Harris, which is probably Tobias Harris is a doable contract to move. Al Horford's gonna be tough, but yeah, man, they kind of paid themselves to a corner, and go Celtics. That's it.
Yeah, you're right. The Sixers are in for trouble. We did have that conversation with Big Pooh. Shout out to Big Pooh. We had him on our last pod. He was an awesome guest. We're looking to stay tuned. We got some interesting names that we might get on here soon that we're excited about. James is working his magic, and tell people where they can find you.
On Twitter, @Snottie Drippen. That's it.
And you kind of sometimes do Instagram, but not really.
Whatever. Instagram's just a bunch of t-shirts and silly memes. Same name, @Snottie Drippen.
All right, and you can find me at the Flagrant_2 on Twitter. We'll probably have this posted tonight, tomorrow, and yeah, we'll by the time we record next, we'll actually have some playoff basketball, and we'll have more shit to talk about. So James, as always, appreciate you, bro, and we'll talk soon. All right, guys.
Out. Peace.